75 years.
75 years. Now look at that. Look at what we're saying. Look at what we're saying. Okay, that's 1854 minus 1779. I'm sorry. I wrote 1777. 1779. So that will bust down to how many years?
75. 1779 to 1854, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 75.
That was 75 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, the reason why we stop at 1854, you got to get a book called The Confederate Cherokees by John Drew, Confederate Cherokees, the story of John Drew's regiment. John Drew is Noble Drew Ali's father. Get this book. Because what this book says is that the Civil War started amongst the Cherokee nations first. And guess who the real Cherokees is? That's us. And it started because we was enslaving people, and half of the Cherokees wasn't down with it. Now, the people that today that you see as Native Americans, these are actually escaped white people. These are renegade Indians, white people, who have took the designation Native and adopted the erroneous designation Indian, because they were descended from the white people who escaped slavery off the plantation and came in and lived amongst you. And you taught them an aspect of culture, and they took that and they created a culture around that. All of this happened between the years of 1779 and 1854 and 1865. Now, the white man will tell you that the Civil War amongst him started in 1862 or 1863, which means, again, they was late. These figures entered the Civil War late. You see what I'm saying? And they tell you that. So, look at what we're saying now. We're saying that the Civil War started in 1854 amongst the so-called autochthonous Cherokee Nation, right? Based upon them enslaving people and things like that. We're also saying that Moors were put into perpetual slavery in 1779. Those Moors who were now outside of the constitutional fold because they agreed that they were going to use these words and these names to identify themselves with, not knowing or maybe knowing that this was going to put them in the trick bag and make them slaves. So what we're also saying is that if we subtract and create the time frame that this happened, this perpetual chattel slavery happened, this busts down to 75 years. You see how drastically different this is from the history that these other African American people are telling you? They're telling you that you've been in bondage before the United States existed. How could you be in bondage before the country existed? That don't make sense. And how could you be in bondage for 400 years when you was running the country up until 1774? What we're also saying is that when they talk about people came over here in 1555, right, on the good ship Jesus, John Hardy Hawkins and all of that, those people that was brought over here were the first line of indentured servants of Moors that were put on indentured service to run the colony. Then by 1667, we get the establishment of the first American corporation called the Virginia Tobacco Company that was created out of the British East India Company. But remember, the British was also the first nation in the world to abolish slavery. Why did they do that? Because they were under the jurisdiction, the British was under the jurisdiction of the Moors. Don't believe me? Look at the treaty. There's something called the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That's right. Between the Emperor of Morocco and what they say is the Isle of Maraganos. Who's that? That's us here. Not the white man. The white man never had no land. He's not even from the Caucasus Mountains. This dude ain't from nowhere. He's from wherever you brought him to. You know what I'm saying? So, what we also saying then is that this whole slavery, chattel slavery thing only lasted for 75 years. You see how these people been lying to us for the past 250 years about what happened?
Oh, yeah.
And why they don't want you to declare no Moorish nationality. Now, getting back to your other question about the U.S.
Pardon me,
background.
God. Hold on a second. I don't want to cut you. It's Dr. Mutua. I see you in the chat room, man. Thanks for coming. Okay. They say.
What I was gonna say, the other side of this is the fact that we have to delineate the fact that okay, we have a country We had a nation and an empire, and still do. These people is just sitting in the place of us until we step up and do what we're supposed to do. By going back into the it's going back into the constitutional fold. So what happened again this past week was that the United States declared that the United States itself is a battleground, meaning that they have given the army now impunity to roll through the streets with tanks and everything else, like you see in Beirut and all of that. The reason why they have the ability to do that is because the United States is under siege. The United States is under siege because the mandate for them to be on this landmass was over on December 21st, 2012. That's why it's the calculated end of civilization, because it was the end. That was the time that the Moors gave them to get up out of here. So the fact that they still here means that they're committing international occupation, breaking international occupation laws. Because citizens of the United States are citizens of a corporate state, which means they are not American. So they declared the United States a burial ground because they want to mess up, they want to break up all your toys before you get a chance to play with them again. But they also did this to declare that all United States citizens are enemy combatants. But guess what? If you're not a United States citizen, that don't apply to you. The only way you cannot be a United States citizen is if you declare a nationality that is other than the United States. You see? So to do that, you got to understand where your country is. Your country is wherever you are. Because when we talk about us as being Moors, what we are really saying is that we descend from the original kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Because the Moors were the ones who started over here, who in ancient times were called Canaanites, and went over into the place that we now today call Africa, or the old continent of Africa, and had to ask and stayed over there for a long time, and then wound up having to come back over here after they pledged that they would protect the integrity of the children of the Garden of Eden, which is us over here. That's why you got the blood of everybody in the world in you, but nobody got your blood other than you. Because we, the Asiatics of North, Central, and South America, are the true autochthones of the land, the inheritors of a place called Atlantis, Lemuria, and everything else. But you got African scholars today that don't get into this aspect of your history because they have made a lot of money making you believe that you were always a slave. So that way you would never look into the birthright of your ancestors here. Isn't it disrespectful to big up one ancestor over the other, especially if the ancestors that you claiming over there in Africa ain't your direct lineage ancestors? And then you wonder why we all getting beat up over here. Why this white man is going ham, because we are out of order. It ain't him, it's us. And now to this day, you know, the only people who give me problems with building on this history is black folk. White man already know. But he done educated his fool so good that they done out-fooled the fool. Yeah. And then what I'm saying, they done out-fooled the damn fool. And we are out here trying to catch up. Right? But the game ain't catch up, it's keep up. You see what I'm saying? You put ketchup on a hot dog or a hamburger. You know what I mean? We got to keep up with who and what we really are because we have been sorely miseducated. And the people who are miseducating us are the same people that were supposed to educate us. Namely, the Negro preachers. Because after the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, a Melungeon, another Moor, okay, he created something called the 13th Amendment. And that 13th Amendment was done to put us back in power. That's why they bodied him. You understand what I'm saying? That's why they put him on a copper penny. You see what I'm saying? And facing the other way, from the other pennies, from the other coins when you line them up. Because he was going back to the original, which is us. His vice president name was Hannibal. And dude was darker than me in real life. You know what I'm saying? But long story short, he created the 13th Amendment that had 20 sections. These people, after they popped him in the head, they hid it. They hid it for about 100 years, right? They act like he ain't signed it. Why? Because the Emancipation Proclamation had 3 points. The first point was emancipate, which means to transfer ownership, not to free. It comes from the Latin term emancipato, right? The second part of it was you were supposed to declare your nationality. And once you declare your nationality, then you were supposed to receive your 30 by 36 landmass in the great interior that represents all of the states in the Midwest, all of the states in the West, and half of the states going down into Mexico as far up into Canada. This was called the 30 by 36 Great Interior. But you know how the white boy do. The white boy took it out of circulation and hid it. And they created a code word for it called the 3 badges. Called the 3 dead badges. And these represent the 3 different articles of that amendment that was supposed to put us back in power. So what was supposed to happen was the Freedmen Bureau was set up by another Moor, an honorable Moor named Pascal Beverly Randolph. They wound up assassinating him, and they put a Negro preacher in the stead. And what the Negro preacher was supposed to do was, after you was declared you was free, you're supposed to go to Negro preacher, and the Negro preacher was supposed to say, okay, well, what nationality or what country are you claiming? Because all of these Moors were prisoners of war. You understand? Not slaves. The slaves were the Caucasians, you see, who had nowhere to go. We were prisoners of war, fighting wars amongst ourselves, of which some of us started to use the white boys as generals, like we used Washington. And in return, we would grant them freedom. Or in turn, we would allow them to abolish the freedom. So when we talk about abolitionists, these are not white people trying to free black people. These is white folk trying to free themselves from the bondage of black people. But because we don't read, and because we get our history from watching Roots and reading Alex Haley and these niggas, we get it all twisted. So the Negro preacher was supposed to bring us, take what national or what country we was going into, and then he was supposed to make sure that we were supposed to receive our compensation. Well, the white man who had already been re-educating these undeclared Moors, who already mad at us for setting a line in the sand that they felt they couldn't cross, now they want to work with this white man to box us out of position. So he go to him and say, look, you take this Christianity and you're going to use this to lock down the rest of the slaves. But now that these slaves is free, what you're going to do is offer them a 14th Amendment citizenship instead of their own nationality. Because see, if they leave our nation, we ain't going to have no money in the nation, because the money is the people. You see what I'm saying? So if all of these Negroes leave us, we're going to be right back where we started from. So let's pay off this Negro with some fake money, right? The greenbacks and white women. You know these niggas love white women. So they paid these niggas off with white women. And that's what happened. One of the most famous ones they paid off in this way was this nigga named Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was married to a black woman, had black sons, all that. Soon as they offered him the ambassadorship of Haiti, he dumped his black wife, he disowned his black children, and he married a white woman, right? And then started to use, and then let the United States use him as the ambassador to break up Haiti on behalf of the French. Tell me that ain't the same thing that's going on today. Not only is it the same thing, it's the only thing that's happening right now. And the more you try to show original people, aka black people, this, the more they're going to start talking to you about Jesus. The more they're going to start talking to you about how great it is to be a citizen of the United States and so forth and so on. They don't even know the difference. Black people don't even know that there's a difference between the United States and America. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Go ahead. I need to stop your phone, brother. I have two brothers want to ask a question.